This week, I am with May Cobb for the third year in a row to talk about her extremely steamy thriller, The Hollywood Assistant. It is some twisty LA fun that I really think a lot of you are going to be totally obsessed with. And it is about Cassidy Foster, who is heartbroken, stuck in life, and getting a little too obsessed with plants. When a well connected friend becomes sick of Cassidy's moping and gets her a gig with a famous Hollywood couple, Marisol and Nate Sterling, Cassidy jumps at the chance to move to sunny LA. The Sterlings are warm and welcoming, a perfect couple. All Cassidy has to do is be available a few hours a week for errands. In return, she has access to luxury, designer clothes, a sparkling pool, great pay. When Nate takes an interest in her, asking her to read a script that he's written, Cassidy thinks this could be the key to kickstarting her writing dreams. As their business relationship grows, so does their attraction. Nate is sexy, talented, and Cassidy can't believe her luck. Clearly, Marisol doesn't know what she has. Maybe that's why the two are always fighting when they think Cassidy isn't around. But Cassidy learns she was hired for a different purpose. The Sterlings aren't the perfect couple. Marisol isn't the perfect wife. And when one of them is found dead, Cassidy becomes the perfect suspect. Per usual with May Cobb, we have some morally ambiguous women in this story. We have steamy sexual tension on almost every page, and some huge reveals at the end that will make you question everything that you just read. That being said, let's get into my conversation with one of the sweetest women ever to write the craziest thrillers. So there is a lot that has happened since we last spoke. So I am going to steal some time here at the top to talk about not the Hollywood Assistant, but you have a book called The Hunting Wives that is currently being filmed for TV. So what was the moment like when you found out, because I know people can like buy the options for your story. What was the moment when you found out that like things were moving forward and like it was going to be a real thing? What was that like?
It was absolutely fabulous. I was having one of those like very soul crushing days,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. And so I was just really honestly moping at my desk at night. And I looked down and my phone's lighting up and it's the producer. And it's 2 days after the writer's strike. And I was
Oh wow.
sweating that. You never know what's going to make it through that.
Yeah.
And then he said, it's happening. And I literally, we got off the phone pretty quickly. I was pretty overcome and I staggered out into the hall and collapsed in my husband's arms in tears.
Oh my gosh. I would too. That is such a huge moment. I know you've been able to be on set a couple times. Do you have any like most memorable moments from set that you can talk about right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the really cool things is that during the pilot, I got to have a cameo, and that was so nice
That
of
is
the
cool.
showrunner Rebecca Cutter, who's wonderful, to include me in that way, and just really just to walk around and see the thing brought to life is so surreal.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask about. Like, is it a total mind trip to like see your like characters walking around as like actors and actresses now?
Yes, yes, it's wild.
Yeah.
And they've done such an incredible job that I'm in awe of uh, the showrunner, the writers, the producer, the actors. It's beyond my wildest dreams what they're creating, and
Yeah.
it's so beyond the book. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I am so excited to watch it. It's on Stars, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Okay. I thought so, but I forgot to double check before I talked to you about it. But that is so exciting. I have loved getting to see like what you can share in your stories and just like watching the progression of it. Do you know like a general time frame of when it comes out, or is that still just in the works?
I think it's in the works.
Okay.
So I'm hoping, yeah, I'm hoping to know something soon.
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool. Well, for everyone who's listening, if you have not read The Hunting Wives, you still have time to read it before the series comes out. So we'll have to do an episode when it comes out too. That would be
Oh,
fun.
so much fun. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the exciting thing that you have coming out in July, or when this is airing today, is The Hollywood Assistant, which is your newest thriller that was just crazy as always, crazy, twisty, wild. Was there anything about like approaching this book with your writing process? Was there anything different about writing this book than your other ones?
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words and for your review. It
Yeah.
so made my day. I'm so happy you clicked with it. I would say with this one, the biggest difference was setting because all my others are set in my hometown in East Texas, and so
Yep.
this one I sort of challenged myself to do something fresh and different. And I had lived in LA like over 20 years ago, so I thought, okay, at least I know that
Yeah.
environment. And it was also like I started it in the summer, and it's so hellishly hot in Texas. I wanted to kind of escape to a cooler climate and in my
Mhm.
imagination. Um, so that was the big difference was I wasn't just, describing a pine forest anymore. I had to see if I could talk about other things and with this one, and this is sometimes true. Sometimes I do know like the villain and everything.
Mhm.
With this one, I did not. I did not, and I know, I know. So it that discovery process was something because I was I was up against a deadline, and I'm like,
Yes.
is this going to reveal itself?
Yeah.
You know, in time, and thank God it did. Oh my God.
Yeah. So you just kind of started writing for the most part.
Yeah.
What was like the inspiration idea that hit you that got you started, even though you didn't necessarily know how it was going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, I was a Hollywood assistant over 20
Hmm.
years ago, so I had, uh, but of course, my bosses were completely wonderful. We're still friends. I love them dearly. We're like family. So, other than the basic setup of the couple, because my
Hmm.
bosses are a couple too, um, that's where all the similarities die.
Yeah.
So, but I did want to sort of tap into that, almost like Cassidy is the protagonist. She's entering a fairy tale. She's gone from her, kind of heartbroken, fledgling existence in Texas, and then she gets swept away into this whole other thing. And that's how it felt for me. Like I was like a poor grad student living up in the Bay Area,
Mm.
eating, frozen dinners and just scraping by. And then for my best friend got me this job. And then to be in this
Oh,
world where, it was a complete paradigm shift.
yeah.
So I wanted to have that sort of that feeling in there, that
Hmm.
exciting sort of, and then yeah, and then also it's kind of like I wanted to do like a tribute to 90s erotic thriller films like Fatal
Yeah.
Attraction. Yeah, and that might have been 89. I got to get the year on that one, but
I
Faith.
can never remember either because Gare talks about it all the time.
I know he's obsessed with it as I am.
Yeah.
So I love those films, and I wanted to try to do my own version of
Yeah.
that.
Yes, it very much was in multiple ways. I don't think it's totally a spoiler to say there's even like a script because that's in the synopsis. There's a script
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
book that's definitely like a script for an erotic thriller that is like
yes.
very fun to discover.
Oh, thank you. I wanted
Yeah.
to try to do that sort of like multiple layers, you
Yeah.
know. Um, I was even playing around with, was actually funny. It was my friend Josh Sabera.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's such a great writer,
Yeah.
and then he's also so in Hollywood, and we had even we were like brainstorming about like, oh, should part of it be in script form? And then I
Mhm.
realized, as cool as that is, I don't know if I have the chops to pull it off. But anyway, we had a lot of fun, one night on the phone, kind of going through
Yeah.
different scenarios. So
I bet you could pull it off, but I get it at the same time.
yeah,
Like it obviously still worked without it too. So
yeah,
that
good.
part works. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I noticed so much when I was reading it is, which is similar to all of your books, is it's like so atmospheric. And I think we even talked about this last year, but also like really cinematic. Like
Yeah.
the way you like describe the scenes as we enter new scenes, you really feel like you're there. And kind of the same with just LA in general. Like it really felt like I was in LA with Cassidy. So I know you said that you lived there previously. Did you go visit again at all to write it, or was that mostly memory? Because you had a lot of details in there.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you to say that.
Yeah.
I love books where setting is, a real part of it. And so I'm always trying to capture that because I like that like immersive feel.
Yeah.
And in the writing process, it also helps me unlock more if I feel like I'm immersed in the world too. So
Mhm.
I hadn't visited in a while. And so
Mhm.
I had been to Northern California, and then we swept through LA just driving back home to move back to Texas. But I remembered it so vividly
Mhm.
that it was really cool to kind of like go back down memory lane.
Mm.
Um, and then I did use, Google Maps and stuff because there were some details where I was like, oh, I have to
Yeah.
make sure that whatever. But then I did get to go back out with my bestie, Amy, who got me the job in the first place as an assistant. We went back in February of this year,
Nice.
and so we got to like walk up in the Hollywood Hills because that's where we were living. Like I
Yeah.
had my apartment like Cassidy,
Yeah.
and so it was really cool to go back with her and
Yeah.
experience that again.
That's super cool. Yeah, the so I've never been to LA, but as I've talked about on here plenty of times, definitely really into reality TV, and a lot of my favorite shows are out there.
Yeah.
I definitely watch some that aren't, but a lot of the Bravo shows that I do watch are out there. So there's this kind of weird thing where like just from watching shows or like listening to the podcasts of the castmates on the shows, there are like little things that like are in my head where I'm like, oh yeah, that happens like that in LA, or there's this. And so even when you were saying it, it was like I was having little visuals of like the reality shows I watch, and like Stassi Schroeder from Vanderpump Rules previously. She lives in the hills too. So it was like I
Oh,
was thinking of like all of her stories that she posts like
yeah.
at her house. So it was like it was really cool because I am kind of Hollywood obsessed. That is like I love a thriller in Hollywood. I love books that like deal with like old Hollywood too. Those are kind of the only thrillers I've read out, or non-thrillers I've read are like Seven Lives of Evelyn Hugo and stuff.
Yes.
So, with you living in LA for a little bit too at some point, and I know you sometimes get inspiration for your books from movies, kind of like you were saying, have you always been kind of entranced with Hollywood as well?
It's funny. I yes and no. Like I grew up watching Turner Classic Movies with my mom, and she's
Mm,
very much like Cassidy's mom in the book, but just the good parts, just the the cinema buff parts. And so
yeah.
I did have that exposure. And then my best friends went to film school at UT in
Hmm.
Austin, and I was an English major, but I learned a lot from her. Like she
Yeah.
took a class on Hitchcock, and so by
Nice.
osmosis, I've always been more of a reader, but I have like as a personal assistant, my bosses were kind enough to say, "Hey, here's a script. You want to start reading scripts for
Oh,
us?" And
nice.
yeah, and so and I'm still interested in screenwriting. So some of that,
Nice.
like it's pretty appealing to me. And I do there's like there's like that old movie Sunset Boulevard,
Hmm.
and some of the I was kind of hinting at those in the book, but I
Yeah.
love some of the older sweeping films where you're totally lost in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is cool that you were reading scripts too for them. Little, and that kind of crosses over into the book as well. Was
Yeah,
there?
that does.
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, it does. It's funny, and it's funny because I was just with them, and I gave them the book, so I'm so interested to hear,
Ooh.
like what they think. Yeah, and that was such a cool thing for them to let me do, because they
Yeah.
totally needed someone to, run in by their groceries and do all the errands, and
Mm-hmm.
they had a lot going on. But then to say, oh, we think you would actually like really be good at this. And so
Mm-hmm.
it did become a side gig for me where I'd write up, they call it coverage. I'm sure you know what that is,
Yeah.
but like, a one pager about um, the reading material and stuff. And I loved that. That was so cool.
Yeah. That's a really cool way to kind of like get into the screenwriting or just like near that. Was there
Yeah.
anything else you included in the book that was like inspired from your time as an assistant?
I mean, not really. I
Mm-hmm.
would say not in terms of the assistant part, because I really did make that so different. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a different neighborhood. It's the
Yeah.
characters are so different. But I would say it's kind of a little bit a love letter to myself in my 20s, late 20s, where
Yeah.
I was wondering, am I ever going to meet somebody? Am I going to always
Yeah.
feel like Cassidy references, like, you know, being single, and one can be totally fine with that, but like the way that society, at least back then in the 1800s when I was in my 20s, it was a little more pressure, and it wasn't,
Yes.
so I that feeling of being like a third wheel, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember all that so freshly that I wanted to really put that in there.
Yeah. Yeah. You really do feel that for her. Like the she kind of needs to be a little bit not desperate in a bad way, but just like at that point in her life
Yeah.
to work it so well in the story, basically, without trying to give
Yeah.
anything away.
I love it. No, you're doing that's great.
Yeah. So we definitely get to know Cassidy really well, but then the marriage at the center of the story with Marisol and oh my gosh, his name just left me
Oh yeah,
completely.
Nate, yeah.
Nate. Huh, I
Yeah.
almost said Dan and I like knew that wasn't right.
Oh, no, you're
Um,
right.
so their marriage is a mess for sure. How did you approach getting to know like them as characters?
Yeah, you've just reminded me of another inspiration for the book, which
Mm.
was that the play and then the movie. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Oh
Did
yes, and you
Yeah,
reference it.
yeah, and I love sort of that toxic marriage, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't really know what's going on because and I didn't know as the author what really was going on with them.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like I got to play voyeur with via
Ooh.
Cassidy, trying to figure out, what is going on with them, because like I said,
Yeah.
I didn't in the outset, who's zooming who and what's
That is
what's
so
really,
cool. Like,
it was fun.
when you're
Yeah,
saying the voyeur part, like it's a very voyeuristic book in general
yeah.
too. Like that's a big part of the feeling of it. So it's really interesting to me that you wrote it that way too. And I wonder if that like added to the suspense and the feeling of the book then that like you didn't know too.
I hope so. I mean, it to me, I only really like to plot so much out, and
Yeah.
then I really like to discover it, because that's just
Yeah.
part of the fun and magic, of
Yeah.
creating. Um, but like I said, it was a little bit like, oh yeah, well there is a deadline too, and you better. I
Yeah.
hope all lands.
Yeah.
Um, whew,
Did it
yeah.
come to you mostly at the end? Like you don't have to say like which point, but like was it pretty much coming to you like in real time as you wrote it?
Um, I had I thankfully not that close to the end. It
Okay.
was around 20,000 words, so around like
Yeah.
a fourth ish away through, and then it was like, oh my god, thank God Almighty.
I know.
And because with this one, and not to be spoilery, like it could have been anyone, like, but,
Yes.
but what's most satisfying, and what's gonna,
Mhm.
you know, and so anyway, I hope that I picked the right thing, but
You did. And there are multiple reveals, so
like
yeah.
if
Yeah.
it sounds
No, I loved both big pieces of information. I mean, it's kind of more than two, but I loved the big reveals at the end. Um, I saw on one of your stories recently I think you were at dinner with your husband maybe, and you were talking about how you're like always running ideas by him and like working
Mhm.
through your stories with him. So, what is that kind of like with him as the co-collaborator?
Oh my God, I would just not be able to do it without him. He is
Oh,
so yeah, he's so first of all, he's so supportive with listening to just all the things,
yeah.
and then like the best ideas, and I'm like,
Nice.
wow, you know, and it's cool because it's I don't ever feel like he thinks, oh, because I had this idea. Like it's like we have a really good just open communication, but it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's really really cool. So
Oh, that's fun.
yeah, it's
That's
great.
really
It's
cool.
great. He actually, it's funny. He's the one that came up with the title, "The Hunting Wives." That was all
Really?
him. Yeah, it was called The Hunting Party. And then one day, back when I was on Twitter,
Uh-huh.
I saw Lucy Foley post an arc of The Hunting Party, and I was like, oh no, like that's my great title that I have
Yeah.
to. So I was in a state of
Oh,
panic, and
yeah.
yeah, and I remember
Yep.
we were with our son, and we were walking around a park one day, and we're just running through all the hunting, blah blah blah, and he said the
Mhm.
hunting wives, and at first I was like, ah, and then like 5 minutes later, I was like, actually, that's like genius, like I love
Yes.
that, yeah,
It's so memorable and it kind of says more about the book actually than just saying the hunting party.
yeah, it does, it really does, it actually suits the book, that
Yeah.
book more,
Well,
so
good for
yeah,
him.
I
He's just
know,
a little secret marketing genius kind of.
exactly,
And
exactly.
he could say that the one he helped title is going to be a TV show.
He's very proud of himself.
Right, I'm sure he is. For sure. Um, well, my last question about it, you do reference like different TV shows or movies. I don't know if TV shows, but like movies as well in it. And did that just kind of like come naturally to you as you were writing it just because it was Hollywood adjacent, or kind of like with the Virginia Woolf reference, were you also trying to kind of mirror the story that you were writing?
I think a little bit of both, but I think
Hmm.
definitely sort of more the latter. Like I was
Yeah.
trying to get those vibes.
Yeah.
So it was there were kind of conscious references.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh my God, I could talk to you all day.
Yeah, I love books that include references like that. So, like sometimes people really use books, sometimes people really use music and TV shows. Remember what was it? It was Andy McHugh or Mandy McHugh with It
Yeah.
Takes Monsters. There were so many TV show and movie references, and I was having so much fun like highlighting all of them. I think it like makes it extra fun for people who like consume other media basically too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. I just adore her, and I have that,
Yes.
and it's on the top of my TBR. I know I'm gonna freak out when I read it.
Oh,
Like I
it's
know
really
it's
good.
oh I can't wait. I can't that
Yeah.
cover
Yes.
anything.
I know. She is so cool. I've loved both of her
Great.
books so
She's so
much.
great. Yeah, I got to meet her in person at Thriller Fest last summer, and it was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I've been asking everyone at the end, have you read anything recently that you've loved? Or if you've been too busy writing, you might not.
I have to take this moment to plug my friend Lori Elizabeth Flynn's latest Till Death Do Us Part. Yeah, the
Yes.
Napa Valley wine soaked thriller.
Yeah.
It's out August 13th, and it's just so sumptuous, and the prose is gorgeous, and
Hmm.
then the layers of suspense. I mean, oh my,
Nice.
yeah.
I am super excited. That one I kind of read like mostly in order on my NetGalley shelf. And so I'm almost through my July book. So that one is
Okay.
coming up really fast for
Oh,
me.
you're gonna love it. Oh my God, you're gonna love
Yes.
it. You're in for such a treat. You're already through July. Kate,
Yeah.
you're putting me on your name. I'm so behind.
Well, I don't have as many things pulling me in directions as you do. So
Well, but that's amazing. Oh my
yeah.
God, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely have to do something when the show comes out too.
Fab, I would love it.